Okay, 4:30 on a nice warm sunny afternoon, so I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda. You have received one addendum item that adds to item 7B regarding the Whitefish Lake boat ramp. It's correspondence, but with that addendum, may I have approval of the agenda? All in favor? Thank you. And I just, you're going to see the beginnings of 2022 as we move through this agenda with a budget schedule. You will also see a summary of what our Integrity Commissioner has been working on our behalf this year. But I'm looking forward to us planning for 2022. And before we begin the formal part of this meeting, we'd like to honor and thank our community partners of the First Nations, the Anishinaabe. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I see none. We'll proceed to the adoption of the minutes. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of Council held on August 3rd, 2021, as circulated. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I will second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the matter of consent application number B 2021-0012-C for Galbraith. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Collins?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? I forgot to mention that Councillor Finson is on vacation and will not be joining us, and we are still waiting for Councillor Osborne. Council will now hold a public meeting for a proposed consent application. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the Council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal, formerly the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, may dismiss the appeal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the Tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of consent application B 2021-012-C for Galbraith is to reconfigure an existing right-of-way for a driveway which provides access over the lands known as 166A Burkett Road, the granting lands, or benefiting lands known as 166B Burkett Road. As constructed, the driveway deviates from the location of the existing easement. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on August 9, 2021. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with requirements of the Planning Act.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application?
Maria Snetman, agent for the applicant, has registered to speak this application is present.
Good afternoon, Mr. Snetman. I will turn to you in a moment. Has the Township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
So, Mr. Snipman, do you have anything you wish to add to the staff report, which all of council has received?
No, other than to add, my thanks and on behalf of the Galbraiths, their appreciation to mayor and council for considering this consent application. And I certainly would be very pleased to answer any questions that may have arisen in the course of your review of this particular application and your consideration thereof.
Thank you. Brady Davis, do you have anything to add?
No
Planner?
further comments. No further comments, Your Worship.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? I see no one, so the council will now close the public meeting and reconvene the regular meeting.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and all concerned.
Thank you, and now we move into the public meeting and the consent application will be granted. I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matter is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened for the consent application number B 2021-0012-C for Galbraith. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I will second that.
All in favor of moving out of the public meeting? Thank you. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2021-0012-C for Galbraith, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Collins.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Application, thank you. That has passed. Thank you very much, Mr. Snipman.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Council.
Thank you. We move on to road allowance closures. Council will now consider the following shore road allowance application. Shore road allowance application number RAF-2020-0017-F for Price on Otter Lake, bylaw number 2021-056. Is anyone registered to speak to this application?
No one has registered to speak to this application.
Have there been any written objections received related to this application?
No written objections have been received.
And Lauren, as our planner, do you have anything to add?
Nothing further to add, Your Worship.
Thank you, and we have a very comprehensive staff report in front of us. So with that, I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-056, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance, application number RAF-2020-0017-F for Price, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. I have a motion from Councillor Moffat
I so move that motion, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Cole.
I will second that motion.
All in favor of approving this shore road allowance? Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. So we are moving into delegations. We first will welcome Suzanne Craig, who has provided a very comprehensive staff report for us. And I will remind Ms. Craig that all our delegations are limited to 10 minutes. So welcome, Suzanne. Hello, Suzanne. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and we thank you very much for your report, which we have received as part of the of the council package, but you may wish to draw our attention to something in the 10 minutes allowed for the delegation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will just give my high-level overview of the report before you. I want to thank you and members of council and senior staff and whoever in the public may be online today for receiving this report, and give me a couple of minutes to just go over the highlights of this report. I thought it would be important to just very briefly state what the authority of the Integrity Commissioner is. A lot of people have heard about an Integrity Commissioner, but wonder really what it's about. And so in the report, I took some time to explain what my mandate is, that I am here as a resource to council to provide, obviously, clarity on the application of the rules of the Code of Conduct. I also receive any informal or formal complaints from members of the public, members of staff, or members of council. And in addition to that, I provide information on the intersection between code rules and the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act and any township policies that may involve conduct of members of council. I wanted to point out, as I have in the report before you, that there was only one formal code complaint that I received during this reporting year, and it was a formal code complaint that was received by your previous Integrity Commissioner that was held in abeyance until you appointed me, and that complaint was in fact resolved, informally resolved. I've also pointed out that there is sometimes some confusion around the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. And when I receive questions from members of council or from the public, I try to clarify what that difference is between a pecuniary conflict of interest and a non-disqualifying code bias or conflict of interest. So I went into some detail in the report before you, just to point out that under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, or the MCIA as I refer to it, there is a requirement. It is an imperative to declare that conflict, to not influence the vote of other members and to not influence staff, and to declare that and have it in your listing of declarations. Conversely, with a code, sometimes it's called a disqualifying interest or a bias. It's more nuanced, and that's why I went into some detail setting out what Justice Morocco had pointed out in the Collingwood Judicial Inquiry. He went so far as to recommend to the province of Ontario that there be a change to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act so that members of council don't have to, navigate these rules and unfortunately find themselves in very difficult situations. In the interim, as we await, if there will be a change to the legislation, Integrity Commissioners and my role is to assist you members of council in understanding your obligations and helping the public understand that sometimes, even when a member of council may appear to have a pecuniary or a financial interest in a matter before council, they may still participate if it is viewed as an interest in common with other electors, or if it is because the member of council is on an appointed board and therefore is participating in that way. Sometimes a member of council has a non-pecuniary interest, and speaking with me is allowed to participate. So it's important that the public understands that there are situations where members of public can still participate in the public interest, carry out their elected functions, and ensure that they are abiding by the code. I set out that at the beginning of my appointment, there were some nuanced issues as it related to the demarcation between the role of members of council and the role of the administration. But I'm happy to say that upon appointment of your chief administrative officer, it sort of coincided with me not receiving any further concerns as it related to lack of clarity as to what roles of members of council, the role of members of council is, and the role of the administration in carrying out the decisions of council. I pointed out in the report that as it related to general code inquiries, I received 4 from members of council. Those were emails or telephone calls, 3 from the public just looking for clarification on certain matters, 2 from staff on process and, where does the code end and where does policy begin, for a total of 9 general inquiries. As I pointed out, only 1 formal code of conduct was received by my office, 2 informal code complaints that were resolved. One was negotiated to resolution, 1 was dismissed. And then what I have in the box below that is just an understanding of what happens sometimes when it's not a code matter. Oftentimes integrity commissioners, and certainly what I do as your integrity commissioners, I do receive concerns from whomever and try to direct them to the appropriate place to have those matters addressed. I didn't receive any complaints or concerns about staff from staff. Of course, that's not my responsibility, but sometimes I receive those types of questions. I received 3 emails from staff about process, and it was pretty much saying, what is the code of conduct? Is this a code issue? And they were not. I did not receive any concerns from the public about your staff. I did not. And I wouldn't deal with those, but certainly I did not receive them. And I received 2 concerns about process from the public. In the grand scheme of things, these are very few matters that come to my attention. And as I pointed out in the report, this is probably an indication of people understanding what the code is for and what it's not for, and for members understanding what their roles and responsibilities are. It's not always an indication, but it usually is a good indication that people are understanding the code rules, my mandate, and what is the administration's mandate. I just very briefly pointed out the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing's consultation on codes of conduct. This is a significant initiative by the minister, in particular to point out if there's a need for a change overall in codes of conduct. So many of the municipalities have different codes of conduct and different integrity commissioners. There's a lack of clarity on what should and should not be there. So the minister has taken it upon herself to, both Minister Clark and Dunlop have taken it upon themselves to ask municipalities and other actors what should be in a code of conduct? What is the role of a code of conduct? And so AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, has pointed out in their recommendations, perhaps there should be increased financial penalties to encourage compliance, suspension of office of certain violations, removal from office of certain violations, better training for integrity commissioners. And I always think training for anyone, including integrity commissioners, is a good thing. Those recommendations and comments by the ministers are expected in the fall. And then I ended up the report before you with some commentary on election year guidelines. I wanted to include that not just because we're coming up to 2022, not just because we have a current election going on, but I wanted to point out to members of council, but also to your staff and to members of your public, that you get to straddle this dual role between being private citizens who get to have, political affiliations, and your role as elected officials on council, where you have to ensure that you are participating in a way that does not show bias or preference towards any one party. That's a difficult balance, but I'm certain that you all are experienced in this area. And what I did was I provided some comments to assist you. In addition to that, I look forward to working with your staff if there is need for any sort of update or guideline piece. I set out my expenditures. That is a requirement of the Municipal Act, and I'm happy to say, because I didn't have code complaints, you kept your expenses down. I think that's a good initiative. The best way to keep the expenses of the Integrity Commissioner down is to follow the rules. And in closing, I just wanted to point out that in this year of the report before you, my role and my goal was to strengthen the understanding of your roles and responsibilities under the code. I've made myself available for any questions. I'm happy to say that all members of council attended the one-on-one virtual training or introductory meetings. They were all positive. All members of council accommodated having me speak with them in their schedules and ask some very pertinent questions. And lastly, I wanted to underscore, although I'm sure he doesn't want me to, that your township clerk, Craig Jeffries is outstanding in introducing me to members of council, to the work of your township, sort of some of the background of your township, although Craig makes sure that he stays out of any sort of, he's like, yeah, Suzanne, that's for you to find out. And so he's a wonderful resource. I thank him for assisting me in my introductory year with your township. And I'm happy to say that from a code perspective, it appears as though we have no concerns that I would have to raise in the report before you. I thank you for this first year. If there are any questions, I'm happy to respond, but otherwise that is my report for the year 2020-2021.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, and it's been an interesting year as we've navigated through COVID and Zoom meetings and everything else, and I appreciate the thoroughness of your report. Do any members of council have any questions for Ms. Craig? I see none. So your report has been very, very thorough, and I have a motion here that I will read. That the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the Office of the Integrity Commissioner's Annual Report, July 2020 to July 2021, attached hereto as Schedule A. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor of receiving the report? Very much. Thank you, and we look forward to working with you when issues arise.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you, members of council. Have a great day.
Pleasure.
Well, I think we might be up.
Mr. Sullivan, can you hear me?
This is Mr. Sullivan.
Okay,
You here?
welcome to council. You have 10 minutes to present your issue and all of council is listening, and this is a public meeting, so the public are watching, and anyone that is not watching is also able to look at this on YouTube following the meeting. So
All right.
you have the floor, Mr.
Sure.
Sullivan.
Is this your worship?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll start. Good evening, Council. I would like to thank the council for allowing me to speak today about the recent closure of the boat ramp on Tally Ho Road.
Can you speak up a little tiny bit? Can you speak up a little bit louder?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
That's better. Thank you.
You're welcome. I would like to thank the council for allowing me to speak today about the recent closure of the boat ramp on Tally Ho Road. A brief history of the public lake access at 459 Tally Ho Swords and the boat launch is relevant to this presentation. I have 6 points to make on this issue, including, but not limited to, cause and effect, safety of the launch, and suggestions for short and long-term solutions. Further to this, I hope to persuade council to the closure of the boat on Tally Ho Road. A brief history of the public lake access at 459 Tally Ho Swords and the boat launch is relevant to this presentation. I have 6 points to make on this issue, including, but not limited to.
Mr. Sullivan, I don't want to interrupt you, but do you have YouTube playing at the same time as you're speaking? Because we're getting duplicate.
Yes.
It's important to mute your computer while you're speaking.
Public lake access at 459 Tally Ho Swords and the boat launch is relevant to this presentation. I have 6 points to make on this issue, including, but not limited to.
Mr. Sullivan, I don't want to interrupt you, but do you have YouTube playing at the same time? Because we're getting duplicate.
No, we do not. We're aware of the
Mr.
technology.
Bell, do you have a computer playing in the background, playing YouTube by any chance?
No, we do not.
We're in a loop somewhere.
Yeah. We're aware. We're just removing another phone, see if that clarifies the problem.
Okay, yeah, there should be no other phone or computer running in the room you're speaking to us from.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right.
We heard the beginning of your history, and then we lost
Okay.
you.
I'll pick it up from there. Further to this, I hope to persuade council to revisit the decision to close the boat ramp in the interest and pleasure of many, many families living and cottaging in the area. In the 1920s, Tally Ho Road crossed over the Little Seguin River below the Whitefish Dam. Time after that, the road crossing Whitefish Lake was put into its present location. The boat launch access has been used by the owners of 458 Tally Ho Swords Road since the early 1960s. In the early 1970s, the Tally Ho Swords Road was improved with hardtop to its present-day location and condition. At this time, the boat launch was improved by the addition of crushed gravel. The launch has been maintained and has served the cottagers on Whitefish Lake as well as visitors to the area for the past 50 years. I'm a professional firefighter and my wife is a registered nurse, so we are acutely aware of health and safety and the necessity of a timely response to a 911 emergency situation, either on or off the water. Years ago, many people died in house fires at night. We didn't ban houses or sleeping. We used technology to come up with smoke alarms, and we developed guideline codes to increase safety, which reduce the risks. We should do the same with township access to lakes by improving them, not closing them. With the recent closure, there is no publicly owned boat access to assist in a water emergency. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, as well as the OPP, MNR, and Seguin Fire and Rescue all have limited access to these waterways. This ramp closure results in a clear and present safety issue for users of these lakes should an emergency situation present itself. Crucial question presented to council is this: is the boat launch safe? We have over 50 years of anecdotal data indicating that it is. To the best of my knowledge, there has not been a serious accident at this location, and this is being researched by CAO Jason Inwood. A lack of accidents suggests that this is a very safe boat launch. Boaters are, by and large, competent citizens who care about the environment and others. A majority of boaters are aware of the sight lines and act in a safe manner using a spotter if necessary. This closure was implemented with little to no notice to the public, landowners, or cottagers, and was done during a stay-at-home order due to the ongoing global pandemic. I believe the optics of this decision reflect poorly on the council and has left a majority of constituents disillusioned and upset about the loss of their enjoyment of the Tri-Lakes. Close this ramp after several decades of use without much public discourse is problematic. Due to the ramp closure, there's been a transfer of wealth from the surrounding landowners to a few adjacent to the location of the boat ramp. Obviously, this statement requires some clarification. I have contacted 2 local realtors and simply asked, if you purchase land near a public boat launch, does it add value to your property? And both realtors agreed that it is a selling feature. My second question was, if you buy property on a lake adjacent to a boat ramp, is it discounted? Both answered that it is a deterrent for some purchasers. My wife and myself and 7 family members own 5 properties within walking distance of this boat launch, and there are scores of other ratepayers who will incur financial loss due to this decision. There are only 2 property owners on the lake at the mouth of the bay adjacent to the launch that may benefit. Still under cause and effect, there will be an increase in boat traffic and pressure on fish stock in the neighboring smaller lakes. The 5 lakes most impacted are Turtle, Maple, Rankin, Otter, and Horseshoe. Cottagers will see a significant increase in boat traffic and increased pressure on fish populations in their lakes. For example, if 2 fishermen per day remove 10 fish, that's 70 per week, or approximately 700 per summer, in addition to the local fishermen. Imagine 1,000 or more fish could be removed in addition to what the cottagers residing on these lakes already pull out. The size of a desired edible fish, such as a bass or a pike, takes upwards of 10 years to grow, and depleted fish populations take years to rebound. This will affect people in wards 1, 2, 3, and 5. An increase in boat traffic also negatively affects the environment and surrounding wildlife. Is the ramp unduly dangerous? We would need any accident reports and data from the OPP, which Mr. Inwood is following up with. For the purpose of this presentation, I have personally never heard of any accidents involving boaters and motorized vehicles. Tally Ho Swords Road and that launch have been in their present condition for close to 50 years with the same sightline, and nothing has changed. That is a remarkable safety record that any company or municipality would be proud of. One of the things we do in the workplace, once a danger is identified, is implement policies and procedures that mitigate the risk. I believe this is what boaters and motorists have done instinctively. Boaters know that they can see 300 meters in both directions, and by and large, they use a spotter and have safely used the launch for decades. Simple improvements for safety could include posting speed limits, painting slow on the pavement, a flashing "your speed is," erecting boat launch and caution signs, and installing a convex mirror that can give the boater a better view of southbound traffic. Saving some of the rock face involved is another suggestion which would improve sight lines. By changing the ramp surface to permeable paving stones, a twofold solution presents itself. Runoff into the lake from the road and ramp is reduced, and better traction on the ramp is established, which allows for a more controlled entrance onto Tally Ho Road. Additionally, there is room to reduce the grade coming out of the lake and to realign the exit so it is more perpendicular to the road. Also, a flashing caution light can be activated by pushing a button when a boater is pulling out, similar to a crosswalk. A sign informing boaters that parking is available at Highway 141 and Tally Ho Swords Road is also beneficial. I think the Tri-Lakes Association members benefit the most from this launch, and they should take an interest to preserve and improve this launch. In the interest of safety, I suggest the launch remain closed until after Labor Day, because I've noticed that motorists are now driving faster through that stretch of roadway, knowing that the ramp is closed. This delay also allows time to install the signs, mirror, and paint on the road, warning motorists to slow down. Allowing drivers time to adjust to the reopening during the fall when there's usually less traffic and reduced launch activity would be prudent. Failing this, I would encourage a community meeting where all stakeholders' voices are heard and an appropriate conclusion is reached in a fair and equitable manner. I understand that this ramp was closed over safety concerns. As a first responder, I've been to countless emergency situations. The last thing I want is to be party to a scenario where public safety is compromised. I do believe that the launch in its current state could be made safer. In spite of its perceived shortcomings, it has functioned safely and efficiently for decades. My concerns are by no means isolated, and on behalf of several in the area, I ask Council to reconsider the decision to close this launch. Its direct impact on nearby cottagers and the unintended pressure on neighboring lakes cannot be ignored. I have a couple of questions. Why would a lake association want to reduce access for their members? It seems counterintuitive to do so. I would also question the validity that all 400 members would agree to close the boat ramp with no other permanent access to these three lakes. Closing, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for hearing this petition, and I hope for a fair resolution to this issue in a timely manner. Lakes are there to enhance the lives of many, not just a few. I hope to hear from you in the very near future. I invite all council members to meet me at the boat launch so I can show you personally how to improve safety. I'm here until Thursday this week, and I will avail myself at your convenience at the boat launch. I will leave my phone number with the office, and I encourage all of you to either call or text so that we can discuss this issue in greater detail. Let's improve the natural place to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. That was very comprehensive, and you have some interesting ideas. I see that Councillor Osborne has his hand raised and would like to ask a question of you. Go ahead, Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, it's not a question. I did have a discussion the other day with Mr. Sullivan, and so we know which page each of us are on. I'd just like to point out that back when Bruce Given was mayor back, I think 2015, some 6 years ago, while attending Three Lakes meetings, on more than one occasion, the membership overwhelmingly voted to close that boat launch. And these are people representative of Clear Lake, Little Whitefish, and Whitefish. And at that time, there were no one was resisting the closure of the boat launch. It just wasn't happening, and they kept pushing me to bring this forward. Now, the number of people that I've received emails and phone calls from amounts to maybe 6 or 7 in the close area to the boat ramp. However, there's a few permanent residents in that area that were part of the association that recommended we close it. Mr. Sullivan, you do point out that there's never been a serious incident at that ramp.
To the best of my knowledge.
The reason the decision was made was to not wait until that happens.
Well, I know the first 50 years it was okay. So do we have to wait another 50, sir, for this to happen?
Time is not the issue when it comes to loss of life. And if we as a municipality, and I hope I can speak for this council this time, have an obligation and a responsibility for health and safety within our township. And if there are risks involved with any of our facilities or anything that's adopted by the township, we can be held liable. And as a result, we have to do what's best in the interest of the bulk of our community in order to keep people healthy and safe. That's all I have to say.
Well,
now, I would like to, on your recommendations about no public access, there is access, and they've been pointed out to the people I've corresponded with. There's fears that those private or public accesses may be shut down. I would like to suggest that our township is still looking for alternatives for an alternate site on Whitefish. I'm not sure where they're at with that, but I would like to defer to our CAO, Jason Inwood, to possibly give an update on where that stands, because we haven't closed the door on looking for another site. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very
Your
much.
worship, may I make a comment on anything?
Sure, you can comment, and then I'd like to ask our CAO, Jason Inwood, to chime in a little bit. Go ahead.
Okay,
Mr. Sullivan.
if you want to let Jason go first, that would be fine.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. In response to Councillor Osborne's comments, your town administration continues to look for alternative options, and will continue until we do find a suitable option. At this time, we haven't nailed down any alternatives. However, I'd be happy to report back to council with our findings, perhaps by year end. At this point, given identifying a location isn't going to necessarily happen in the next few days, but I would be happy, under council's direction, to report back by year end with an update on where we're at with respect to alternative locations.
Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, do you have something to add?
Yes, well, I believe that's why we're here. We did present alternatives to make it safer. We agree that it could be safer, and that's what we're suggesting. And we're asking, because it doesn't appear to me as though my counselor has even considered any of the improvements. He seems to be wanting just to close it. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why a lake association would want to close the only viable public boat launch that exists on those 3 lakes, that doesn't have some kind of private ownership or some kind of legality going on with it. It is the only one. If fire, like I'm a firefighter, so I know, like if you need to get on that lake, you need a public access, and this is it. It's never going to be a great boat ramp, but we can make it safe, and that's all I'm asking. This has been here before me, and it's really disappointing to hear my counselor just dig his heels in. Didn't sound like he listened to anything we had to say. I'm hopeful that the other counselors are and open-minded. And I'm very disappointed. I'm sorry, Councillor Osborne. I know you've served us very well, but unfortunately on this case, I have to vehemently disagree with your stance. And I pray that the other counselors will take heed of what we said. And I hope some will take me up on my offer, come to the boat ramp and I can actually show you there is room to improve this.
Okay,
And
thank
we'll
you,
move
Mr.
forward.
Sullivan.
Thank you.
I do want to say that you have made some very viable suggestions in terms of safety, and the process needs to take all of your ideas and all of the findings that our CAO come up with, and it needs to come back with a staff report, which we will do. And I promise your suggestions will be evaluated. But I'm going to turn for the last comment on this issue over to the CAO, Jason Inwood.
Thank you.
You stole the words right out of my mouth. I think what I presented was that I would write a report, or we would collectively write a report on alternative locations, but perhaps what I should have stated was that we'll explore alternative locations, but also meet with Mr. Sullivan and consider the safety improvements at the current location and report back to council and seek direction by year end.
Okay, thank you very much. Your presentation was comprehensive and thorough. Do you have, did I understand that you have a petition to present to council?
My son has a petition. I've only signed it. I think
It should be dropped off to the township, care of our clerk, Craig Jeffrey, if you'd like it to be considered.
okay. Does it matter? Would you like 1,000 signatures or 2?
I don't know how many you've got, but when you are prepared to submit the petition, you're welcome to drop it off and it'll be added to the consideration. But the place to do it is drop it off to the township, care of our clerk.
We will do that. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you for
And
your
thank you
time
for
and your
giving me
presentation.
the opportunity.
And it's clear that you care about the township, so thank you very much. We will consider the options.
It is mostly my home.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for the August 23rd, 2021 meeting of Council. Do I need to read the list? No, okay. So I have a motion. Can I have a motion from Councillor Fellner for this, to receive staff reports? Okay, thank you. And seconded by Councillor Collins.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-063, being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-030-010-02003, application number R 2021-0004-F for the Sargent Company Limited is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat on this one?
I so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I will second that motion.
And I believe we have our planner, Mr. Bell, on the line to speak to this a little bit. You saw this coming a few meetings ago, but Mr. Bell, do you want to give us a little brief overview of what we're asking here?
Yes, I will, Mayor McDermott and Council. You've had the application in front of you since January by the Sargent Company for the development of the entire site under a zoning bylaw for the entire site. But the effect of the zoning bylaw is to add 2 new uses to the property in this resource area. And those 2 new uses are the concrete batching plant and a bulk fuel operation. And those are the 2 that are contained in the draft bylaw in front of you. There's also an exception in the bylaw in front of you for the height of the silos for the concrete batching plant. Council, the main portion of the concrete batching plant will meet the township's bylaw. It is the silos that go up to the 18 meters and really warrant the exception in this case. The balance of the site is zoned for the proposed uses, and the municipality is currently awaiting a complete and overall site plan from the Sargent Company, as they've indicated that they want to get on with the concrete batching plant first. I spoke to Mr. McMillan today, and he assured me that they're going to put that complete application in as soon as possible. They're reworking several aspects of the site, and they're looking forward to getting on with the concrete batching plant first, the bulk fuel second, and the convenience store third.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. Gary, in terms of the silos, I'm presuming they're similar to the ones at the ready mix plant on Osler Park in terms of height. Would that be a good frame of reference to?
Mayor McDermott, Councillor, I do not know because I'm not aware of the height of those ones on Osler Park now.
Okay. Do you know if they have a zoning then amendment, or is something available to know if they're zoned the same way? And I know you won't know that off the top of your head.
Mayor and Councillor, I can certainly look that up and make it clear through the site plan application process. In fact, I've asked the Sargent Company to do a cross-section of the site, and I will ensure that the cross-section goes through the location of the concrete batch plant and shows the concrete batch plant main structure and silos in at that scale. And I will find out, Councillor, the height of the existing silos for comparison on Osler Park Road.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? No? Well, this is big news for Seguin, so I'll call for a vote on this motion. All in favor? Thank you, and that is passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Bell, for all the work you're doing.
You're welcome.
I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the Township of Seguin 2022 budget schedule attached hereto as Schedule A, and it's in your agenda package. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I will second that motion.
And who's going to speak to it? You? We'll ask Jason to speak to it a little bit.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I'll be brief and see if there's any questions anybody has, but this is while the schedule does look very similar to previous years, this is a little bit of a different process than perhaps what council's seen for the duration of your term of council. What you see before you, well, a lot of the points of the 14 points that are on this schedule are administrative deadlines before we come to council. What you'll notice is that several of them are where council will review and approve certain components of the budget. Example, line number 5, which would be the service level change proposals. We would be coming to council in October seeking council approval on the proposed service level changes. Fees and user fee recommendations would be in November. Cost of living and the user fee bylaws would be in November as well. And so what you're seeing here is budget is a big elephant, and we can't chew the big elephant in one swallow. So this is taking little bites along the journey, and what we end up with is the very first meeting in January of 2022, having council approve the final budget, where we would piece together all the various approvals and see, here's the final package, here's the final binders, or however we format them this year, for council to consider and provisionally approve in January of 2020. Answer any questions?
Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. The one that we've sort of had a bit of a bumpy road on is the cost of living adjustment in connection with the whole budget. How are you proposing, or have you given that any consideration as to how that would look in the grand scheme of the budget, given that we would be approving it on November 15th.
Through your worship, I think the question you're asking, Councillor Moffat, is what are the impacts of it, of the cost of living? Is that, I'm not sure I understand the question you're actually asking.
Well, we've generally approved a cost of living increase of, let's say, 1.5%, absent the rest of the budget. So when you take that and then you roll that into the rest of the budget, we end up with, you know, an increase of 1.75, let's say. I'm just wondering if, as part of the approval, are you working that into the overall increase, or at the time of November 15th, we will not know what we are or where we'll stand with an overall increase? It'll still be a small piece of a larger pie.
It will still be a small piece. However, with the September 7th target setting session, you know, we would be working towards delivering a budget that would meet or be lower than that of the target set by council and the finance committee. So while it would still be a smaller piece, what you would see in that final package that would be available to council in December would be inclusive of cost of living and all other
Okay. Well, it just reiterates that we're still on the same path as we have been in the prior years at this stage, and maybe we can talk further about that as we work through the budget. Thank you.
I think it's important, Councillor Moffat, that although the cost of living is still a separate piece, there are going to be other pieces you will have agreed before you get there. So, last year when we made the cost of living, it was like an orphan. It was all by itself. And I think this year you're going to see, how to phrase it, but building blocks coming together bit by bit. And I know it's our CAO's goal to have us understanding those underlying building blocks earlier in the process, so we know where we're headed than we were before.
I don't disagree. It's just that, sorry, Mayor, it's just that that is only a one component, and it is a large component in our overall budget. So you don't know what the end of the road looks like until you get there. This is a building block, as you stated, to get to the end of the road. So a cost of living increase could have a 4% increase, but we don't know that when we approve the cost of living increase. That's all.
If I can, Your Worship, I think, Moffat, our objective here is to work within the mandate through the target setting session. So to present 4% increase is not likely within our mandate unless council is feeling really generous. I don't suspect you are that generous, but you know, we'll have an overall set target that we're working towards, and cost of living will work into that as well.
Sorry, I wasn't suggesting that. All I'm saying is that a cost of living increase of X could result in a property tax increase of Y, but we don't know that property tax increase until we get all the building blocks built in. So we're just approving one piece that is going to be adding on to the end. That's all. So.
We have a question from Councillor Osborne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Jason, do you anticipate any major variances from our deliberations past on the overall budget? And if so, negative or positive, either way?
I would can't necessarily predict. This would be a question that Ms. Fraser would answer routinely, although I know she's here, but I know she's not feeling very well, so I told her I would field the questions. But I would anticipate that there would not be any significant variances from what you've seen in the past.
And any variances that do come up, we would deal with in January, then pre the final approval?
Any variances that came up, we would work through those throughout the schedule. So if it was a major capital initiative, if it was a major operating initiative, we would undertake those discussions and make sure that we address them through the process, through the fall and into the winter of 2021 and have it all resolved for January 10th in 2022.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? We're going to be busy this fall, so stay tuned. So we have a motion to accept this budget schedule on the floor. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-064, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a memorandum of understanding, prescribed snowmobile trail land use permission between the West Muskoka Trail Riders Snowmobile Club and the Corporation of the Township of Seguin for the use of a portion of municipally owned land being Lot 9, Plan 42M-567, former village of Rossdale, now Township of Seguin, designated as parcel 24043F/F, 2 Knowles Crescent, property roll number 4903-020-002-06900 for snowmobile trail purposes, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
I move, so move that, Mayor.
Thank you. And could I have a seconder from Councillor Cole?
I will second that.
All in favor, or do you want to speak to it, Craig, a little bit? Coming out of the clerk's office to tidy up some paperwork, really.
If there are any questions, I will answer them. This has been ongoing for a few years. The club was requested to look for an they have gotten back to us and said they're in shortly. I'm going to continue.
Councillor Osborne, you have questions?
Yes, Mayor. Craig, in the background analysis, it mentions that staff have received inquiries from individuals interested in purchasing. Is that a factor here before we commit to this memorandum?
Your Worship, to Councillor Osborne. Yes, you may recall back several years ago, that's what initiated this. There was a request to look at purchasing this property, and that's when we realized there was a snowmobile trail on it. And we approached Snowmobile Club, and that's when they asked for an MOU, and we got into the discussions over. So we have actually had 2 inquiries on the property. The council of the day chose, if there could not be a route found alternative to this property, that they would maintain the trail on the property.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor of approving this MOU? Thank you. Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby accept the proposal from Perry Group Consulting Limited and award RFP number 2021-014 Information Technology Systems Review and Strategy to Perry Group Consulting Limited in the amount of $47,362, which is $41,913 plus HST. Can I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that, Mayor.
And you want to speak to it a little bit, or?
Council may recall that part of the budget for this year included an IT review, a systems review, and a report and recommendation and a strategy. There was an RFP sent. 23 people took that RFP, 6 submitted proposals. They ranged from approximately $37,000 to $119, and for you as the staff recommendation.
All in favor? Thank you. have a motion. The Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby accept the resignation of Walter Sembe from the Township of Seguin Humphrey Recreation Committee and thank Mr. Sembe for his service on the committee. I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Collins.
I'll second the motion.
All
Mayor?
in favor?
Before you call,
Councillor Osborne, you have a question?
yeah, before you call the vote, sorry. Looks like Humphrey Recreation is, our members are dropping like flies. There was a discussion about putting together a Zoom for us. I think I got correspondence on that. A, to get a new chair in place, and B, to try to reassemble the committee in some form or fashion through Zoom. Craig, was it you that was going to follow that up?
Actually, Dawn is looking after that, and so far, we have not had a response from enough of the committee to have a quorum to actually have the meeting. So she is going to be following up with them again this week by telephone this time and see what she.
Okay, well, post-COVID, I guess we might have to reassemble a new committee. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of accepting this resignation? Thank you. The next item is in your agenda package. It's a report from the Belvedere Board. Councillor Coles, do you want to speak to the report? It's a comprehensive report, but I don't know if you would like to speak to it a little bit.
Yeah, just briefly, a few comments. You recall that we passed a bylaw removing our responsibility for holding the license for the Belvedere beds. 6 municipalities have now passed that. The 2 left that have not yet, and because their councils haven't met, are Carling and the Archipelago. And we expect them, at least Archipelago, we're never sure about Carling, but we'll see where that goes. Essentially, what is happening in the next few weeks is the hospital will be applying to the provincial government to hold the license that we have given up, so that the responsibility for long-term care for both Belvedere and Lakeland will become the responsibility of the West Prairie Sound Health Center. So that conjures up all kinds of different thoughts and ideas for how we go forward. We, from the management committee of Belvedere, will still manage the facility on the short term until everything is fully turned over to the West Prairie Sound Health Center. And then we will be recommending at some point in the future that there be a new governance structure, and that the municipalities should still bear some responsibility, as it is a community effort, to support the West Prairie Sound Health Center as opposed to the long-term care initiative. That's kind of the direction we're headed, and we're working through the logistics and the proposed governance structure. I had asked Jason if we could possibly meet with the CAOs at some point to have a discussion, so we can understand what their thoughts are from all the municipalities. So it's not just Seguin. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer if I can.
Any questions for Councillor Cole? Thank you, and thank you for all the work you're doing on it. I know it's a big file, so it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
And this is in your council package. I have a motion here. It's a lengthy one. Whereas the role of Ontario's 441 fire departments and their approximate 30,000 full, part-time, and volunteer firefighters is to protect Ontarians and their property. And whereas, according to the Ontario Fire Marshal and Emergency Management's latest data, in Ontario there was over 11,000 number of lost fires, 9,500 no-loss fires, 784 injuries, 91 fatalities, and over $820 million of estimated loss in 2018. Whereas fire emergencies only make up a portion of the total calls for help received by fire and emergency service departments as they respond to nearly every public emergency, disaster, or 911 call. And whereas Ontario's fire department infrastructure deficit continues to grow annually and is almost entirely borne by the municipality and local taxpayers, with the majority having populations under 25,000. And whereas, due to antiquated structures and equipment that do not meet current industry standards, the safety of Ontario public and Ontario firefighters is being jeopardized. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby support Resolution number 2021-049, passed by the Council of the Township of Hudson, and Council does hereby request, number 1, federal and provincial government include apparatuses, training, equipment, and structures for fire departments as eligible categories to any further infrastructure programs, which will not only provide immediate stimulus to the local, provincial, and federal economies, given current economic uncertainty, but also ensure the safety of Canadians and dedicated firefighters. And that this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable Kinga Surma, Minister of Infrastructure, Norm Miller, MPP Parry Sound Muskoka, Scott Aitchison, MP Parry Sound Muskoka, and the Ontario Fire Marshal, the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, and the Township of Hudson. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I so move the motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder from Councillor Moffat?
I'll second that motion in stereo.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2021-065, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector 1, bylaw enforcement officer, Diego Bernal, for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Cole?
I will so move.
Excuse me. And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
I'll second that.
All in favor of welcoming Diego? Thank you. And we move to council reports. So, Councillor Moffat, I'll ask you to go first.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, this covered about a 3-week period since our council meeting was not every 2 weeks. So back on July 29th, I attended a webinar, Georgian Bay Forever is Recycling Plastic Working. It was a pretty good webinar in terms of, again, an educational session, and it was well attended. Muskoka Watershed Council, we've had several meetings trying to kick off our community roundtable group on, let's see, August 3rd and 18th, attended 2 meetings on that subject. Also on August 4th, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities had a learning morning webinar, covered off about 6 or so topics: minister zoning orders, updates on wood structure, and blue box transition, which was the most popular one. A lot of good information that I passed along to staff if they weren't able to attend. The Foley Fall Fair is a go on September 4th, Saturday. We have had several planning meetings over the last week. We continue to have one on a weekly basis now. The next one is Wednesday. The fair is still, or activities at the fair are still to be determined. We've tried to nail down several of them. COVID-19 obviously is impacting the activities and placement and stuff like that, but there is going to be a full day of things, motorcycle sort of a shine and display. There's an online auction happening. There will be Whispering Rivers, the musical organization will be there, several animals and such. There'll be some exhibits. So lots of things on the go if you would like to volunteer. And I ask that all of council try to volunteer or at least come to the fair. That would be great, instead of heads down and not looking at me, other than Mr. Coles. So hopefully we can show, we've got human interest story that I'm working with Valerie and Janet Bordeman that we are doing for the fair that we are pushing out later this week. So looking forward to the event. Hopefully the weather will be a little cooler. On the August 16th, had my first in-person Road Lake Association meeting. It was a very good morning, nice day to be sitting out on the lawn, and good to see majority of the Road Association members there, and spent about I would say most of the morning covering off what happened in the past, but really looking forward to the future on that. Attended the Muskoka Lakes Association Staying Safe on the Water webinar last week on the 18th as well, and that was a good webinar. Couple of guest speakers. For OPP was Dave Moffat, no relation, and then some boating training sessions occurred afterwards. The only other item, it really is emails on road and speeds continue to be an issue. I've talked to several residents on that. Couple of things on internet. Public works, short-term cottage rental, that was discussed at, these were items that were discussed at the Road Association back on the 16th. Fireworks, bylaw, building and planning matters continue to be hot items that resonate with residents and asking about. So that's it on my end. Thank you.
Councillor Coles.
Thank you, and thank you, Daryl, for yours. A busy couple of weeks again. On August the 4th, meeting with the Westbury Sound Health Center architects that were doing a master plan. They're coming along nicely. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. On the 6th of August, I met with the developer, Phil Brown, who's doing the Clear Lake Estates development. Walked the site and was working on him and the North Star with a brief article which has been published. He was very happy about the published article. He thanked me profusely. He thought, because it could have been much worse. On August the 10th, met with the Westbury Sound Health Center board chairs over the development of their property again, and they had an issue with life lease concerns, and mainly around a misunderstanding of how a life lease would affect their property should it be situated on it. However, we tried to assure them that life lease should be understood to be retiring in place. Essentially, that's what it is. And we're hoping in time that life lease will go away and it will be simply rentals. That's the objective. On August the 11th, we had an ad hoc committee meeting again, which is the full committee of all the boards, where we clarified all of those issues, and our architects were there to present again. The same afternoon, we met with the Northwest REIT, which is a health center or healthcare REIT that builds hospital and long-term care facilities in a public-private partnership. This is one of the possible solutions for rebuilding Belvedere in cooperation with the provincial government. So it's a very doable kind of thing to do. On August the 13th, I did a very interesting morning session with the Clear Lake Estates ecologist and did a snake handling and identification session for about an hour. Very, very informative. If anybody's interested, it's online. Their site, the Clear Lake Estates site, has it on their website, so you can follow up and see what goes on there. But it's interesting that they take so much care in preserving and protecting any kind of wildlife. They literally have an individual walking the site every day, making sure that if there are any species who have crossed the fence, they get put back on the other side of the fence so they're protected. This goes on every day. August 16th, Belvedere project. Got to read my own notes here. All right, this was, yeah, the Belvedere project coordinators. We met to understand how we're going to go forward, because once the West Paris Sound Health Center has the license, we have a continuing need to manage the existing Belvedere site while the residents are still at Belvedere. At the same time, we have to manage the redevelopment of that site pending the move to the new site. So there's a lot of pieces to juggle at the same time. And so the Belvedere board won't be going away in that capacity on the short term, that's for sure. And on the 18th of August, we had a bi-weekly meeting with the architects, read the master plan. And I can tell you now that there are 2 proposals coming forward for the site, which we'll be presenting on Wednesday to our full committee. And then at some point in the near future, we will let the councils know what decision the committees want to go with in terms of how that site is developed. August the 19th, another Belvedere meeting, the ongoing management and what we would have to do. And you may or may not be aware that Don Carmichael from McKellar has resigned from McKellar. He was our key person on the Belvedere board. He's agreed to stay on as a guest and advisor, which we're thankful for. 2 councillors resigned from McKellar last week, just so you know. There's lots of issues going on there that the Integrity Commissioner, I think, should get involved in. And then on Saturday, the mayor and I attended the Salmon Lake Ratepayers annual general meeting. They do a wonderful job. It was, again, our first time at an outdoor meeting in person. And they serve all the barbecue accoutrements, and so very nice time. Wonderful people. And even though I had heard historically a lot of issues concerning the Clear Lake estates, there was no issues raised at this meeting in a negative context. They were all quite cooperative and, you know, I agree that it's something that's got to go ahead. So that's been my couple of weeks.
Councillor Osborne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was pleased to see a recent email, and I don't know if all of you have had a chance to read it, about a new process for media releases from our CAO. Hopefully that will clear up any misleading information that's being put out to our residents at different times about different areas, and forestall a number of questions that come up from our residents, because there has been some confusion. So I welcome that process where press releases will be somewhat vetted by council. At least we'll be aware of them prior to them going out. The mayor and I are invited to a Clear Lake Association meeting Thursday the 26th, and I look forward to that. And I'm also looking forward to hosting the barbecue for our staff on Friday. We all remember that, right? And I promise all councillors, I will not send our residents to your lakes to fish them out. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the last meeting, I had a Committee of Adjustment meeting. And I haven't had any other meetings. We've had some progress with the trails, steady progress. It's really starting to shape up really nicely, and the plans that they have for the future are great. We've been able to secure, Public Works has been able to secure a lot of basically free material for the trails, which is just huge. Not really much else to report. I was at the airport today and the Hercules was in. That's always fun and fun to watch. And you know, they're doing some maneuvers and parachuting and that. And it's really good when you you know, if it just clicks and you're going by and you can watch it, it's really something else. So that's all I got to report. Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just basically, there was not a DSAT meeting this month. So basically just taking care of residents' concerns relating to roads, especially a lot of questions being asked why Star Lake was postponed. The Capital Roads project for Star Lake was postponed. Seguin Trail, especially out in the Manitowoc area, there's a lot of campers and concerns about what's going on there. Short-term cottage rentals on Star Lake, noise bylaws, building issues, and of course, internet. So just trying to keep putting out the fires as they start. So just dealing basically with residents' concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. So have a few meetings. August 9th, Jason and I met with the Cogeco team to understand their work plan on their schedule on their more recent receipt of grant money from the federal and provincial government. They seem to be on top of it and they know what they want to get done. I don't think you'll see anything large until next spring, but they know the work they have to do. August 10th, we had an airport commission meeting. Saturday, August 14th was the Lake Rossdale North Association AGM, which was still by Zoom. And for the first time, it's the first time I've seen it anyways, they as a lake association have negotiated preferential rates with Bell and with a propane supplier for their members. So they're selling their membership on Lake Rossdale North Association as a financial advantage to getting better propane and internet rates. I thought it was innovative, and obviously they've been working a long time on this, their committee. The 16th to the 18th, I was seated in front of AMO most of those 3 days. I can't say that Jason was online as well. There wasn't a whole lot of new information and certainly not many grant application news or anything. I will have a summary for the next council meeting. It's sorely lacking in the networking and the real advantage of the meeting your colleagues and discussing. So the one advantage of the online meetings is that if you miss a session or attending one session and can't go to another one, you can go back and look at it on tape. But it's still very like watching TV, I guess, is what it really is. As Art mentioned, I was at the Salmon Lake meeting, and it was not only a good AGM, but it was quite a social event as well. People coming out of their cocoons from COVID. They did mention it was the first meeting they'd served alcohol at. That might have increased the attendance a little bit, but it was a lovely afternoon. And yesterday was the meeting of Safe Quiet Lake alumni, and it's quite shocking. I mean, I was one of the founding members, but it's quite shocking that over the 8 or 9 years of Safe Quiet Lakes, over 100 people have been involved. And they're working on the Noise Coalition at a lobbying level, at the federal level now. It was really fascinating to see how far they've come and how their partnerships with the OPP and the Boat Manufacturers Associations have blossomed into real partnerships in making boating safer. And it's now a national organization. They have Lake Okanagan and Lake of the Woods as members. And it's proof that one person standing up at one little lake association in Muskoka 8 years ago saying, I want to tackle unsafe boating. And look what it's become. So it's really something. So I want to touch just really briefly. I don't want this to make it a meeting, but to remind you of this council's barbecue lunch on Friday. Posters are up throughout the township, and on the internal employee network, it's being announced. Valerie's helping me with that. I think everybody has an assigned job, except Ted, I don't think you have yet. So, they may need some help around the barbecue. Anybody that can come to the kitchen by 10:30 would be appreciative, because we need to put salads into individual containers, cut desserts, and that kind of thing. And Dominique assures me that council will all have aprons. And the three of us bringing coolers, that would be great, and Daryl's on ice. Terry, you have a question?
Yes, I want to know how many tomatoes to cut. So how many people are we expecting?
65.
Few tomatoes. Okay, thank you.
Potatoes, onions, pickles, what else?
Yeah,
did I-
no,
Okay.
Yeah. Teddy's gonna bring the
You have
mustard
cut,
ketchup
not
around.
Janet.
Yeah, I've already been told that.
Thank you. And we will be wearing gloves, and please bring your masks. We are serving this under COVID protocols. So, unfortunately, we have to deal with the little itty-bitty packages of mustard, ketchup, and relish. We can't have bottles. And when we serve the hamburgers and stuff, we actually have to serve them using tongs and gloves. So we will be operating under COVID protocols, which Dominique has down pat for us. If anybody has any questions about Friday, give me a shout. I have do you have anything to report? Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have much, but your quick discussion on the COVID protocols reminded me of, how wonderful it's been the last few weeks to attend some of our facilities and feel the buzz of our community back inside of our facilities. But we're also obviously all very much aware and watching what's happening with provincial numbers climbing over the last week or two. And so while your township administration and staff are always practicing their due diligence, or encourage the community as you're using the facilities or you're out and about to continue to maintain that due diligence, continue to maintain your social, follow all the appropriate protocols from the health unit. We're on the backside of this. We're not out of it yet, so we're need to do our part and ask the community to do the same as they enter the facilities and use the programming that's available to them. So, but it's great to see, for my first time, our arena up and running and the buzz of hockey in the air, and it's quite fantastic to be able to use the facilities again. And our staff continue to do an amazing job keeping the facilities open and clean. So, all the staff for doing what they're doing, and we welcome the community back into some of our facilities for the time being.
Great. And I think I hope you all read the public service announcement that I forwarded from the public health unit. The North Bay Perry Sound Public Health Unit has the lowest COVID case count of any public health unit in Ontario, and continues to be that way. So that's a tribute to the entire community. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee agendas and minutes and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and the addendum for the August 23rd, 2021 meeting of Council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move that motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I'll second that.
All in favor? And I have a motion that the bylaw number 2021-066, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner. Okay, thank you. All in favor? And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this regular meeting of council at 5:59 p.m. Meet again on Tuesday, September 7th, 2021, or at the call of the mayor. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins? So we'll go to Councillor Moffat.
I'll definitely move that motion, Mayor.
Okay. And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I will second that.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Enjoy the evening and stay cool, or in the lake, whatever you can. We'll see you Friday.